Call the Planning Commission meeting to order. We do have a quorum, and we are ready to go. If you'll please turn off or silence your mobile phones. Planning meeting call to order. Hope I didn't slosh my coffee too bad. So we have open consent agenda. Commission may request for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for presentation and public comment. Otherwise, the consent agenda will be considered in one vote. All items on the consent agenda have been recommended for approval by staff with no opposition received to date. Since some items on the consent agenda may require a public hearing, the Commission may accept comment on any item. We have one item, which is consideration of the October 17th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting minutes. Hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's 5-0. Okay, we'll start with the regular agenda. First, we're going to be doing rezonings. The City Council has final authority for approval of rezonings. We'll start with Plan Development 2203, the southeast of Valley View Boulevard and Stone Canyon Trail. It's in Single Member District Number 1. A request for approval of a rezoning from the zero lot line, twin home and townhome single-family residential RS3 and low-rise multifamily residential RM1 zoning districts to a planned development PD zoning district to allow an underlying base zoning of RS3 with the additional use of single-family homes and subject to the development standards as outlined in the ordinance, being 37.5 acres located southeast of Valley View Boulevard and Stone Canyon Drive, our trail.
Thank you, Madam
Yes, ma'am.
Chairperson. Sherry Bailey, Senior Planner. And I apologize, I didn't have my glasses on and I couldn't tell what you were asking, but
Okay.
you did great. As you indicated, this is PD 2203. It is southeast of Valley View Boulevard and Stone Canyon Trail. As you can see by the slide on the screen, this is a piece of property that has been before you a number of times. They are asking for a zone change in this case from the RM1 and the RS3 that they had rezoned to a while back, and to go to a PD to allow single-family homes with 45-foot wide lots and other development standards. So we're going to an RS3 with as the underlying zoning, and it is a PD. There are 37.5 acres. It's in the southeast corner of Valley View and Stone Canyon Trail, as we indicated. It's in District 1, Tony Hubert's district, and it's the Bonham neighborhood. On the left is the neighborhood identified for you, and then on the right is the RS3 and RM1, and it is the RM1 that we will be losing and going to the RS3 with as the underlying zone for the PD. We sent out 40 notices. We had a number of people, close to 20, that called and asked questions about it. We did have one person in opposition, and you can see that on the screen. This is just a couple of slides reacquainting you with where the property is located. As you remember, this is the original Section 22 plat, the original 22 plat and the preliminary plat for the final plat for the entire area, showing that connection to College Hills was approved but never recorded on February of 2021. We now will have a new Section 22 plat only for Cedar Hill Drive with no connection to South College Hills, and that was approved not very long ago, but has not been recorded as of yet. Those are the plats that you have approved already in this area, and again, those have not been recorded as of this time. The proposed PD removes the RM1 from the property so that apartments will no longer be allowed in this area. It adds single-family housing as a permitted use because the RM did not allow that. It allows single-family homes with a 45-foot wide lot. Normally, a single family would have 50 feet, but the single-family home lot size will remain as 5,000 square feet. That is what the applicant has asked for. It allows a floor area ratio normally in RS3 of 60 or 60%. The applicant has requested 70% in this case. The planning staff is still recommending the 60%. All other allowed structure types are subject to the normal RS3 zoning standards, as you would expect in any RS3 area. Sidewalks will be required on both sides of the streets. Our thinking on that is that the RM1 required it by the ordinance, and since they are asking to remove that, we're still, because of the density, recommending that sidewalks stay as a requirement in this development. Future phasing will require street connection to South College Hills Boulevard as development continues. The next development needs to connect to the southerly end of South College Hills and continue south. We've added that condition because the traffic in that area is growing by leaps and bounds. The neighborhood is already concerned about the traffic that's going down in front of their homes, and we really need that connection to South College Hills because it will kind of split the traffic and carry it out faster, and we really need that. Valley View Boulevard will then be required to extend once more than 75% of the property is developed. That'll be 28.1 acres of the total. Valley View Boulevard, as you're aware, is a really important cross-street connection in order to get the traffic out of that area. This is a comparison chart on there. Those areas in red are what will be unique to this development area and piece of property, and I've just recently gone over those with you. Our rationale is that neighborhood under our comprehensive plan supports a diversity of age, income, and housing choices, and this development will reflect that kind of diversity. The lot widths, though they're slightly less than the normal 50 feet of frontage, will be within this development only, and so will be complementary to this development and should not impact the surrounding properties. The current RS3 and RM1 zoning did allow the 40-foot wide zero lot line twin homes and 20-foot wide townhome lots. This PD will require 45-foot wide single-family home lots. That's larger than the other lot types, so there'll be a mix within the area. The required connections to South College Hill and Valley View, as I indicated, will improve the development patterns in the area, and that's a great concern to both the neighbors and to the city. And the required sidewalks will improve the pedestrian connectivity. Staff is recommending approval of the rezoning from the zero lot line twin home and twin house residential RS3 and low-rise multifamily residential RM1 zoning district to the planned development PD zoning district to allow an underlying zoning base of RS3 with the additional use of single-family homes and subject to the standards outlined in the PD ordinance. This is being the 37.5 acres at the southeast corner of Valley View Boulevard and Stone Canyon Trail. And with that, are there any questions from the Planning Commission?
What's the street width right now on the streets that are permitted?
The street width itself on there, I believe this is our normal street width, local area.
So can I
40.
ask why sidewalks are being, I understand, on anything that would necessarily tie directly into South College Hills, but on some of the back streets for, like coming into Forest Hill, et cetera, why are we requiring sidewalks on both sides?
We're making the recommendation for that because it is a density change
But
in
it's
the
still
area.
less than an apartment complex would be, or even twin homes. So I guess I'm just kind of confused on that one.
And that was strictly their original zoning with the RM3 did require the sidewalks. We felt that was really important in an area where there is a heavier density that is being recommended. And we figured that was a good trade-off, more dense on the residential development, the different housing types, and then being able to move the people around in the area and provide them sidewalks.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you,
Okay.
Sherry.
And I believe the applicant is here.
Okay, we're going to open up for public comment. Please state your name, sir, and
Good morning, Russell Gully with SKG Engineering. First, I want to thank Ms. Bailey and Mr. Rainbow for taking time on Friday to meet with Mr. Duncan and myself to kind of go over this topic and kind of talk through what we were hoping to see, what they were, and to kind of, I guess, get us to a better spot in understanding where we're trying to go with the project. Okay, so and I'm trying to figure out the best way to approach this. So we may just kind of take it through on their proposed, if I can find them. Yeah, I'm going the wrong way, aren't I? Okay. Okay, so this is the one I'm looking for. So as Ms. Bailey presented, we have the RS3 kind of to the north and the RM1 to the south. What the proponent is asking to do is to kind of allow flexibility for what goes into this location while kind of effectively giving up the multifamily aspect when we talk about a pure apartment complex, going in and just one large, massive group of multifamily deals. That's not what his kind of objective is for this location. It's really to be diverse within the single family, the townhomes, and zero lot lines. So in talking to builders and realtors, he's kind of getting that there's different needs, and so he's trying to be flexible in being able to meet those needs. So one of the ask was the 45-foot wide lots, and it's kind of an economic driver for that, because anytime you construct new development, you're spending a large amount of money on streets and utilities, and every foot that you construct or every foot of frontage it makes that lot that much more expensive. So by going from a 50-foot lot to a 45-foot lot, he's able to be able to reach that more affordable housing that is being sought after at this point in time. So that's really the main ask from the 50-foot to the 45-foot lot. The floor area ratio, what we've seen and what COVID has kind of brought about is people are now spending more time at home and using their outdoor space more at home. And so most patios don't count as into the FAR, but except for those patios that are surrounded on pretty much three sides. If you have two opposing walls closed, then that floor area is counted. And so there again, we don't expect that every lot within this area is going to be pushing a 0.6 or a 0.7 floor area ratio, but there are some of those homeowners that want to have that kind of enclosed back patio that is kind of enclosed on three sides. And so this really, by asking for this 70%, really kind of affords that opportunity for those types of homes to be constructed within this area. Is there flexibility there? Yes. Is it at a 0.6? Is it a 0.7? Or maybe Mr. Duncan and I have had the conversation. I think we're comfortable with a 0.65 if there's a happy median in between that. So I think our ask would be either the 0.7, or I think we would even be okay with the 0.65 on the floor area ratio allowance. So then it comes really down to the sidewalks on both sides of the streets. If you look at densities, an RS3 zoning would allow substantially smaller lots than the 45-foot lots. You could either have a 40-foot or a 25-foot lot in an RS3 zoning. And let me get to that right quick. I have to resort to my glasses too. So an RS3 will allow the zero lot line and twin homes to be at 40 by 60, or the townhouse units to be at 25 by 75. So if you look, and there's not really, I tried to find a good way to kind of do the math on that, to lay it out. So as an example, I took 1,000 feet of roadway, and for a 50-foot street, you could get 20 lots on one side and 20 lots on the other side for a total of 40. At a 45-foot wide lot, you would have 22 or 44. At a 40-foot lot, you would have either 25 or 50 lots. So we see here that these 40-foot lots that are allowed in an RS3 are substantially, or not, I say so, there's an increase in density already allowed in the RS3 zoning than what we're asking for within this PD. And then the 25-foot lots for townhomes could correlate to either 40 to 80-foot lots within that 1,000 foot of street segment. So the density is, it depends on ultimately how it develops out. And we already have some lots platted that the Planning Commission has approved that are under construction. They're nearing the completion of the roadway improvements, so they're anticipating that Section 22 will be filed here relatively soon. So as part of this PD, those lots aren't going to change. Those will stay as they are. But we're looking at the diversification of maybe some future sections coming in with these 45-foot lots. So we really feel like the sidewalk, the ordinance as kind of approved by Planning Commission and ultimately adopted by the City Council, does not require sidewalks in any of the RS zonings, be it RS1, 2, or 3. There's not a sidewalk requirement specifically tied to zoning. There is sidewalk requirements based on road type, if you will. And so our suggestion is, let's just let the sidewalk ordinance stand as it's been adopted. We don't need to go in and start messing with that or changing that or pulling that out and applying it. We feel comfortable with the sidewalk ordinance and letting it kind of speak and stand on its own as presented. So we would just ask to remove the sidewalks being a condition of requirement. The future phasing and the connections to South College Hills, we've been working with the city engineer and the adjacent properties to the east, trying to kind of figure out drainage. And the reason we haven't pushed the streets all the way east to that connection to College Hills or even taken Valley View through at this point is there's a pretty significant drainage area that comes from the west and then goes through this property and then continues on to the east and ultimately then across the railroad tracks kind of head on as headed to Lake Nasworthy. So it hadn't been that we're trying to avoid anything with Valley View or College Hills. It's really been, we've been trying to work out and solve this drainage issue. There's opportunities to partner either with the city. I think the city has enlisted an engineer the city owns some real estate and some land, I guess, kind of to the northeast of this area. And so we're kind of talking with the city about the opportunity of some multi-use, something that could serve as a temporary detention basin, but could also double as recreational fields. So you see that occurring in a lot of municipalities, especially in the Metroplex. So the developer is either going to lose lots by having to put a detention basin on this property, or he could contribute or partner with the city and do something over there. Or we're also talking with the adjacent property owner to the east about, there's kind of an existing low-lying area that was made whenever they raised and constructed the railroad track through there. So we're kind of working through all of that. So we're not trying to avoid that connection. We understand the importance of that connection. And so for 8 and 9, we're really asking that to maybe not be a condition of approval, because any plats that any future plats are going to have to come before this board and even go through staff. So we feel like at that time, if it doesn't fit right or it doesn't feel right, then and it doesn't provide some of that connectivity that they're asking for, then simply say no, And I think we'll accept that, but we're really not at all trying to avoid that. So we would ask that 8 and 9 kind of be deferred or deleted. 9 is really not concerning at all to us. We feel like we want to get to Valley View as soon as we can. So if you want to leave 9, we're fine with that. But 8, there's an opportunity potentially for a little bit of property to. Let me get there. In this area, there's a street right here that ties back to Stone Canyon that potentially we would do before we go any further east with this, or Valley View. We don't know that. It's still this is still being very fluid. So that's kind of where we are. And really, I guess I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have, so I'm not just up here carrying on.
Can somebody bring back the conditions, please? Thank you.
Does anyone have questions for Mr. Gulley?
And we have provided, Mr. Duncan had taken the time to kind of hand out and do a little comparison of what was the original submittal for the PD versus what staff is kind of come to. As you can tell, they're really not far apart. We do believe that, we could leave the RM1 and put in sidewalks, and we're not any different. So really, we decided that this PD would allow the flexibility for this and meet the needs. So thank you very much for your time, and look forward to the discussion.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hi, my name is James Duncan. I'm with Duncan Group Southland. The biggest, I can say back in late July, Russell and I were talking about what we would like to do, so we asked to have a meeting with John and Zach and Aaron and anyone else at the planning that would care to participate. We kind of mentioned that we made a mistake or two, and we thought that single family would be allowed along with the other uses in RS3. Can y'all hear me okay? And so we wanted to know what would be the options of trying to get some of that back. We had no desire to reinstate apartments. That's not even on the radar for this development. We mentioned we knew that if we asked to have it zoned back to RM1, it was probably going to be a non-starter politically, because it's an emotional thing anytime neighborhoods hear rezoning, and we certainly understand that. So we asked whether RS3 could be changed to include single-family. Could we have an RM with special conditions or special use, or on RS3? Could we have just a straight special use or a conditional use? And I don't recall whether Russell or John introduced that perhaps a PD would be the more suitable use, because we wanted to do it in conjunction with staff and have the city on board with what we were trying to do. The biggest cause of the change, besides missing out on wanting single family, is probably because the market shifted. When we bought the property, I'd say our attempts to find out what the market is talking to realtors, brokers, lenders, et cetera, MLS. The thought was the majority of the homes probably in this area would be, say, 2,000 to 2,500 square feet, and maybe with the exceptions going to 27, 28, 2,900. The price point would be 350 to 450 or even higher. We've seen a dramatic shift. Now the primary likely market for homes is going to be, say, with a bracket of 1,500 to 2,000. Not meant to be a hard or ceiling or bottom, but still a very healthy price point and a very healthy sales point. It's certainly not affordable, but it's attainable by a higher piece of the population. We thought the request was pretty reasonable because 40 and 45-foot lots were already allowed under both zoning categories. So what we really wanted was single family to be allowed, and we thought that we would ask for the same or slightly larger lots than were already allowed. So we didn't view that we were increasing density whatsoever, unless you want to take one subset of housing type and say that that wasn't allowed, now you're allowing it, or it was in RM1, it was allowed at 50 feet, now it's allowed at 45 feet. So that's the biggest change that the rationale for our change. The market said there's a greater need and acceptance and desire for single family than all zero lot line. And so we needed to have a mix or a much higher percentage of single family. So those were the rationales for this. And I think Russell addressed everything else. When we came in, we were originally addressing the Valley View and the College Hills situation. When we first bought the property, there was a very good chance that we could work with the neighboring landowners across Valley View and across College Hills. There still may be an opportunity of a less comprehensive but a more limited cooperative situation. But the original situation where Valley View would go in and be split by each side's ownership was off the table, or has become off the table. And that was actually our preference, to open up with Valley View. It's the most logical, it's the best for the city, it's the best for our subdivision, frankly. Any builders would want that connection to go through. As Russell said, the drainage situation is problematic. The engineering ordinance changed. When we open up Valley View, there's going to be a lot of water that's coming down onto the new section of Valley View and even onto the existing section of Valley View to the east. And so we started trying to discuss with city engineering, maintenance, et cetera, is there solutions and what that could result. Our interest meter was ticking. We had to get going. So we started with sections. We took the first street south of and parallel to Valley View to put that in, and we left a gap, which would be an adjustment period or a runway, so that Russell could then connect and also accommodate the drainage. He also needed to know which way the drainage and how we were going to accommodate that drainage on Valley View to understand how to design College Hills intersection properly. So we left that flexibility for engineering issues to be resolved, and then we proceeded as best we could. So that's the underlying reasons for all that, and I'm happy to answer any questions y'all might have.
Any questions for Mr. Duncan? Thank you.
Regarding the density, I forgot this. We asked for just the 0.75 because that's what we originally had. When we met with staff, we said we had the 0.75 down south. We had 0.60 up north. We could leave it the way it was if there was real heartburn over the 0.75 throughout. So we said we'll drop it back to the existing 0.6 and 0.75. Then the discussion centered, well, what about 0.7 or 0.675 or whatever? So we're pretty flexible there. I think there's one other use that is currently allowed down south, which is duplex. I'm not even sure what the total distinction and difference is between a twin home and a duplex, but our desire is for owner-occupied single family. Having said that, I do know there have been a couple of instances where a broker and/or a realtor and/or a builder said, I've had a couple of clients that want a significant part of their market is retirees, and some people have requested, is there an opportunity anywhere in the city for me to own my building and rent the next door side? Having said that, we don't have any plans or anything on the books right now to put those in, but if there's a desired diversity of housing types to help both the rental market and the ownership market, you simply need housing stock. So on the southern part would be the more likely, I suppose, or at least if we didn't get this, but we wonder why we would have to give that particular housing type up on the southern part, not the northern part. But it's not a big primary driver. I'm being honest, transparent if I could. So those were all of our considerations that went into this request. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, I'm going to close public comment and open it up for discussion. So I'll just start. I agree with Russell on the sidewalks that since we have all that in place, I would hope that that's removed from the proposal and that can be handled the way it's supposed to be set up now.
And this may be a question actually for Russell. Number 9, I know you mentioned that that wasn't a deal breaker, but by the time Valley View kind of hits that 75%, by the time the development hits about that 75%, do you believe, and I know this is a long shot, but maybe the retention issue with the city would be resolved on the other land?
That's our hope, but I think as a level of protection for everybody, we're fine leaving that 9 item there because we do recognize the importance of Valley View and traffic. And I think the city has some upcoming and ongoing construction projects they're renovating some streets maybe in those areas that are impacting traffic. So we understand that. So if 9 needs to stay, I think we're fine with leaving 9 there as a good measure to protect and cover everybody.
Thank you. James? Okay. Yes.
Not enough coffee this morning. I forgot part of what I was going to say about the floor area ratio, and I was talking about that. The reason that we were requesting anything like to the 0.75 or higher than a 0.6 or a 0.6 and a 0.75 relates back to the market change and the diversity of housing types. Since the market shifted so quickly from, say, 18 months or 2 years ago to today, I'm not smart enough to know whether in 2 years hence, if the rates drop enough, people may say, rates are down, let's lock in, let's go ahead and stretch them by 2,600 square feet. And we will have platted a bunch of lots. The discussion about the size of the house is a little simplified as Russell was saying, because covered patios and front porches are covered or included in the floor area ratio, and the same thing with your garages. So your garages say 450, 500 square feet, have a front porch, 50 to 100 square feet, you have a back patio, and they're becoming larger as people are tired of being locked up in COVID. So you can see 200-300 feet easy for covered outdoor living. Having said that, you add all those up, right now, that easily is a 2,100 square foot house. But if the market jumps, maybe 2,000, maybe 2,200. But if the market were to jump again and someone wanted a 2,600 or 2,700 square foot house, we wouldn't have enough floor area ratio. So the thought was just that little bit of additional flexibility for future proofing, because this is a long-term project. Thank you.
Thank you. So they're requesting the 70%, which that would give them the opportunity to make that decision on each lot.
And I will say in that report, staff did leave that one kind of open. Mention what the applicant requested and then what we're requesting. There's not really any heartburn from staff either way.
Okay.
For that one.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts, but I've got a few.
Okay.
So, I think the strategy that Mr. Duncan is proposing is smart, given the economic situation that we're in and the uncertainty of what's going to happen in the next 6, 8, 12, whatever, however many months. We've talked time and time again at meetings about affordability of homes. In the southwest side of town, on average, we have not been seeing as many, other than some of Tony Jones patio homes, that 1,600 square foot home being constructed. I think giving builders the flexibility to decide what makes the most sense ultimately assists the public in the best use and possibilities. So with that being said, I would move to make a motion to approve items 1 through 5, including the 70%, because again, we're unsure of what may come in the next 1 to 5 years. I would like to remove number 7. As Terry already mentioned, I believe that the ordinance we have on sidewalks is sufficient, and I do not believe that it's necessary in this development. As far as items 8 through 9, I do believe that those can be deferred to a later stage in development. The developer is already incurring a considerable amount of cost on infrastructure, that if the city has plans on retention, et cetera, for a different piece of property, I think that the city and the developer can easily work together, hopefully, to come up with a somewhat quick resolution on how to do that without taking away potential affordable homes.
For the next area, they'll have to bring it before us or something, correct?
And it's a planned development.
Well, I guess that's the question. I don't know if we can go back to the
I'd like to second that, but I want to make sure that's,
And before you second it, I just have a question for you. So in yours, you approved 1 through 5, with 5 being 70 or 0.70.
Yes.
You also approved number 6, correct?
We go back to number 6. I apologize. I apparently
It
need more
was
coffee too.
That's the RS3 zoning standards?
Yes.
Which is, okay. That was the only one that was left
I'm
out.
sorry.
That's
Thank you,
okay.
Terry.
So I think that, and this may or may not be a big concern, the staff's concern is theoretically they could plat another, say, lots over to here and then do this section over to here, continually leaving lots that would abut College Hills, leaving them out of their future phases of plats to a point where then it might become economically infeasible. In other words, it could be better off for them leaving that last row of lots adjacent to College Hills just undeveloped in order to avoid having to construct College Hills. It sounds like that's not their intent. We may have ways to prevent that in the ordinance, but it's a little bit of a gray area. and maybe it's being overly cautious. I've seen that happen in other cities where a developer will build right up to, but leaving a one lot depth from a major road as to avoid them having to construct that major road.
Okay, so with that being said, John, have you heard anything or are you privy to anything regarding the potential use of the city land timeframe? Like, is this a 5-year? What are we thinking?
I guess I'm not sure which.
Like,
the
as far as
drainage.
that future land use, that both Russell and Mr. Duncan mentioned that the city has land south of the development, that they were looking at multi-use as far as recreational as well as detention. Do you have any idea on time
We're
frame?
not aware of anything. Russell probably knows more about that than we do, having talked with engineering.
I don't have a problem doing like you said, I just also, and I don't think they would do that on purpose.
Right.
That's not their intent,
And
but we just want to
maybe we
protect
put
ourselves as
a
well.
stipulation on time frame. Like ideally, Russell or Mr. Duncan, how long do you think this would take to develop? Is this a 2-year project? Is this a 5-year project? Like, what are you anticipating?
So here's our city man right here, engineering.
Hi, Kevin Pate with engineering. I believe what Russell is discussing is there is an area of property that's owned by the city northeast of Valley View. And that we have preliminarily discussed with Russell and amongst ourselves in trying to make that into a more regional detention basin. But those are very preliminary discussions at this time, and it kind of depends on how this builds out and how we interface with these guys and the other people in Southland Hills to the southeast. So there's no timeline that we can give you at this point on that.
Okay.
Any other questions? Russell, do you have anything?
Thank you.
James, you mentioned that there was some opportunity to protect, the last lot being developed. How comfortable are you with that in putting something to ensure that that doesn't happen? I understand intent, but I also understand possibilities.
That's a hard question to answer. I guess it depends on, it sounded like they were saying that they're committed to doing that. I think we might very likely use those words against them if they change that in the future. It's a little tricky because for the most part, if you meet our subdivision ordinance standards, you all are obligated to approve it. There is some wiggle room there that you can point to some of the purpose statements in the subdivision ordinance. So for example, if they wanted to plat this next row of lots all the way to the end except for the last 2 lots, I think you all could deny that based on those purpose statements.
Okay.
But it is, I would call that, and I'll defer to Brandon a little bit, but that's a little bit of a gray area legally. If they were to force it and say, no, the subdivision we are proposing meets your requirements, you're obligated to approve it.
Right, if
I'm
they
not
wasn't
sure
doing
that's
anything
a-
special, they wouldn't have to come get approval or anything.
Right.
Correct.
So that, again, it's probably overly concerned about a very minute possibility, but we have seen it happen in other cities where.
I don't have a problem with it. I'm gonna go ahead.
Is that
and
a second?
I'm gonna second.
Okay, all righty. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0. We'll move into conditional uses. The Planning Commission has final authority for approval of conditional uses. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. We'll start with A, CU 22-20, 411 North Park Street in Single Member District Number 4. A request for approval of a conditional use to allow a renewal of a short-term rental in the two-family residential RS2 zoning district located at 411 North Park Street.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As you indicated, this is a request for a renewal at 411 North Park Street. Staff has visited with the police department and code enforcement, and there are no complaints to report on this. They've handled everything perfectly. The only change from what you see before you is they have changed their local management, and I have met the local manager. She is here, and have talked with her about that, and I think that was an excellent decision on their part. So we are looking at this piece of property, this white house. It is actually two houses from the main thoroughfare in town, and as you can see, there is a fence that separates them from the commercial area, and yet it is a fairly active short-term rental property. We sent out 13 notices. We had 0 in favor. We did have one person who sent in and opposed. They did not have any comments on that, and that is reflected on the map in front of you. It was the last one of that block. In looking at this, the applicant plans on making no changes to the appearance of the short-term rental. It will look like every other home in the area. There are no other short-term rentals within 500 feet of this proposed location that we are aware of. It's in an R2 single-family area, which is a fairly active area, and again, next to the commercial. We don't see that this has any effect on the natural environment. As we've talked with you before, the community always seems to be needing short-term rentals, and they seem to be doing very well. And this is a neighborhood. The short-term rental nature of this house does not impact the homes in the area that we are aware of. So staff is recommending approval of the conditional use for a renewal at 411 North Park, subject to the 2 conditions of approval: maintain all the required parking on the premises, which they have been doing, and they will need to have a fire inspection only this year because it is their first renewal. They will also have agreed to maintain the short-term rental operation in a manner that's consistent with our zoning ordinance. And they will be coming back next year for a 2-year renewal, as far as the applicant is aware. With that, are there any questions?
Okay, this one is a renewal, or is it first time? So would it be,
It's a
they'll
renewal.
come back in 2 years, correct?
Right, I'm sorry. They will be back in 2 years.
Okay, thank you.
They've had their first.
Okay,
Yes.
any questions for Sherry? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We'll open it for public comment if anyone wishes to speak.
Hello, I'm Mary Parkerson. I'm going to be the new operator for this property due to the owner being not local. So I'll be posting my contact information in the home as required. And really, that's it. Everything's been going well with the property. No complaints. So
Great.
I just look for y'all's approval for the renewal.
Okay,
Thank you.
Any other comments? We'll close public comment and open it up for the commission.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Be 5-0. We'll move on to B, CU 22-21, 2517 Junior Street, Single Member District Number 2. A request for approval of a conditional use to allow a short-term rental in the single-family residential RS1 zoning district located at 2517 Junior Street.
Hello, this is Rayline Berry, planner, and this one is a new short-term rental. It is in the RS1 zoning, the District 2 Tom Thompson and Angelo Heights neighborhood. That's the picture of the front of the house, and then both the south-north on Junius. Street widths are good. It's a nice little neighborhood, actually. I had not been out there. 18 notices were mailed, 0 in favor. We did have 1 opposed. They didn't have any notes or anything. They just sent in the little part. And then the applicant is making no changes to the existing structures. There's no other short-term rentals active within the 500 feet that we know of. The rental would be in the RS1 single-family residential zoning. There's no foreseen adverse effects on the environment. The short-term rental will address a need for more rentals in this area, and it is a neighborhood. So the nature of the house does not impact the home. Staff is recommending approval as long as the applicants maintain all the off-street parking, obtain a certificate of occupancy, and a fire inspection. We will make the note that you do need to renew in 1 year and then every 2 years after that, and provide proof of the hotel tax.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for staff? Okay, thank you, Ray. Open it for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak? So we will close public comment. Open it up to the commission.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 5-0. Move on to number C, CU 22-22, 1810 Shady Point Circle in Single Member District Number 1. A request for approval of a conditional use to allow a renewal of a short-term rental in the single-family residential RS1 zoning district located at 1810 Shady Point Circle.
I'm sure that most of you have been on at least one of the times that this applicant has been back. She's one of our longer short-term rental applicants. We have not had any complaints in the 5 years that I'm aware of. I talked to both, again, code enforcement and the police department. It is RS1 zoning. It's in District 1, Tommy Hubert's area, and it is the Nasworthy neighborhood. This is a picture of both the parking that's available and the general area of the house, and it's set quite a ways back, so it does not have a major impact on the neighborhood. And I've had as I said, no complaints. We mailed out 12 notices. We received 0 in favor and 0 opposed. To the best of our knowledge, this applicant has maintained her short-term rental all 5 years, meeting not affecting the surrounding area, meeting all of the requirements. And given that, staff is recommending approval of another renewal for this short-term rental. She will maintain all of the required parking on the site. She will have has had the fire inspection all ready this year, and will continue to maintain it as the ordinance requires. Are there any questions?
I was going to say on that recommendation, it does have the 411 North Park, so we just need to change that to 1810 Shady Point
1810,
on your slide.
right. Did not catch that. Thank you.
Any questions for staff?
Nope.
Thank you, Ms. Sherry.
Thank you.
We'll open it for public comment if anyone wishes to speak on this. Close public comment. Open it for the commission.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Be 5-0. Moving to D, CU 22-23, 1607 South Park, Single Member District Number 5. A request for approval of a conditional use to allow a short-term rental in the single-family residential RS1 zoning district located at 1607 South Park Street.
This is the first time that this applicant has been before you. They just recently purchased the home with the intent to use it as a short-term rental for the foreseeable future. As you indicated, it is RS1 zoning, it's in District 5, and it is in the Santa Rita neighborhood. The short-term rental is the gray house on the left. Across the street, directly across the street, on the east side of the street, the applicant or the person who lives in that home did call and visit with me for a while about the short-term rental. He was concerned about a short-term rental, said he was going to talk to the other neighbors to see how they felt, and I did not hear from him again, so I do not, and I received nothing from them. And I don't believe he is here, but maybe he is. We sent out 23 notices in the area, and other than that, I did not hear from anybody either for or against. This applicant plans to make no changes to the existing structures on the lot and does have adequate parking on the lot. There are no short-term rentals within 500 feet of this property that we are aware of, and this will be the short-term rental his first time, as I indicated. There is no adverse effects on the environment. We do not see any effects on the neighboring property because he's not changing the home in any way. Staff is recommending approval of the conditional use to allow the short-term rental at 1607 South Park Street, subject to 2 conditions. Those conditions are the same as you've seen before: to maintain all the street parking on the site, in this case to have both the fire marshal and the building inspection for the property, and then the fire inspection every year afterwards, and then to continue to maintain the property as it meets the zoning ordinance, including the renewals that he will have to have next year, and then every 2 years thereafter. Are there any questions?
Okay, this is the first application
It is the first application
Okay.
for this property.
that says renewal on your slide.
Right.
Are
We'll
there only
correct
two?
it, yeah.
Are there only 2 things that need to be done, or is there a third? The condition. The other, first one that we had a while ago on Junius, there were 3 items, I think.
We're trying to standardize that.
Okay.
I've got it covered.
Oh, you put it all together?
I did.
You're so efficient.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for staff? Okay, thank you, ma'am. Open it for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on this case? Close public comment. Open it up to the commission.
Motion to approve is presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Be 5-0. Move on to E, CU 22-24, 2330 Fisherman's Road, Single Member District Number 1. Request for approval of a conditional use to allow renewal of a short-term rental in the single-family residential RS1 zoning district located at 2330 Fisherman's Road.
Hello, Ray Lineberry again, planner. And this one is a renewal. They have been active for the last year on 2330 Fisherman's Road. It is northwest of Knickerbocker Road and Fisherman's Road in District 1, Tommy Hebert, Nasworthy neighborhood. The zoning map is it is RS1 zoning. 8 notices were mailed out. We received 0 in support, 0 in opposition. Pictures from the west and east, south, and then the front of the property. It is a renewal. Request in compliance with criteria per 208F and 406 of the zoning ordinance. No impacts on the adjacent properties. They have 2 paved vehicle spaces on the property, which complies, located adjacent to Lake Nasworthy, surrounded by other lakefront properties. There's been no police reports or any code compliance complaints, and the applicant will need a certificate of occupancy. We are recommending approval with the 2 conditions. The owners shall maintain the parking, and they shall obtain and comply with an annual fire inspection since this is a renewal. And then the same note of the 1-year review and then every 2 years after that. Any
Thank
questions?
you, ma'am. Any questions for staff? Okay, thank you. Open it up for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on this case? Close public comment. Open it up for the commission.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Be 5-0. Item F, CU 22-25, 123 South Park Street, Single Member District Number 5. A request for approval of a conditional use to allow a short-term rental in the two-family residential RS2 zoning district located at 123 South Park Street.
Hello, Ray again. So this one was approved a year ago and it has expired, so we're starting over. It is located on 123rd South Park. It's southwest of West Beauregard Avenue and South Park, District 5, Karen Hesse Smith, and Santa Rita neighborhood. And the zoning is RS1. Or no, I'm sorry, it's RS2. 14 notices were mailed out. We received 2 in support, 1 in opposition. The view of the house, the front of the house, and down the street. Again, down the street, looking west and looking south. So the original short-term rental approval expired. So the request is in compliance. No impacts on the adjacent properties. There is 7 vehicle spaces, which complies with the RS2 zoning. Within walking distance of parks and the Riverwalk. There's been no police reports or code compliance complaints, and the applicant will need a certificate of occupancy. We are recommending approval. They are required to continue with the off-street parking spaces. The owners need a certificate of occupancy, and they need to obtain and comply with an annual fire inspection. Again, this one we're treating as a brand-new one, as it did expire. And then we have the notes of they will need a renewal in a year, and then every 2 years after that. And another note on this one, it is in the river corridor, so if they do any exterior improvements to the home, they will require DHRC approval.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Okay, thank you, Ray. Open it for public comment. And close the public comment. Open to the commission.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0 and approval. Okay, 5, we're going to go to public comment. Issues or concerns not on the regular agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, address all comments to the dais, and begin by stating their name and address or single-member district number. Please limit all remarks to less than 3 minutes. Is there anyone from wishing to speak today? Okay, we will close public comment and move to the director's report.
Thank you. I don't really have anything today. I will note, you may have intended to mention this, but the next meeting will be at the McNeese Convention Center, our old location. And so I just wanted you to be aware of that. There are events going on here in this building that prevent us from meeting here in December.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, then we'll go on to future meeting agenda and announcements, and I will reiterate the next regular meeting of the Planning Commission is scheduled to begin at 9 a.m. on Monday, December 12th at the McNeese Convention Center, South Meeting Room, 501 Rio Concho Drive, San Angelo, Texas. Adjournment, this meeting, notice of meeting was posted on the bulletin board at City Hall. for the city before 9 a.m. on Friday, November 18th, in accordance with Chapter 551 in the Government Code for the State of Texas, and in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. The City of San Angelo will provide for reasonable accommodations for persons attending Planning Commission meetings to better serve you. Requests should be received 48 hours prior to the meetings, and please contact the Planning Division at 325-657-4210. If anyone wants to make a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. 10:07.